acknowledge a new member, Mayor Mike Wright. Welcome, Mayor. We're glad you're here.
Congratulations.
We'll send him an email.
Doc knows, okay? I want to make sure I get that in the record.
Everyone has Mayor Wright's bio in our handouts. If you'd like to look over his credentials, which are amazing, but we're honored to have you serve with us, sir. Thank you. Agenda item number 3 is our safety procedures. Because we are in a new building, obviously we are social distancing, as you can tell, but with the new meeting here at Citizens Tower, I would like to call on our city manager, Mr. Atkinson, to go over safety procedures this morning.
All right, and I have a red light, so it's time to go. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And David, we'll get with you and your crew. Joe Mowdy at Emergency Management and his group have written up for the building. For the purposes of today, if we were to have tornado or inclement weather, there is a stairwell outside to your right, and it will take you straight to a very extensive basement complex. So that would be our plan for tornado or inclement weather. Fire procedures: exit the door right in front of us, the main doors where you come in. You have a sequence of doors both immediately to your south and to your east that will take you right outside when you do that. Troubled individual or shooter, these doors outside will close. I'll ask the board to exit through the hallway there by your green exit sign, and we will direct you to the appropriate place. As we're meeting on the first floor, don't expect the elevators to come into play. If they do, we of course have the talk buttons and associated with those. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, can I add one item to Mr. No, I was looking for something else. Oh, anyway, what I want to add is City of Lubbock insurance protocols say that the most senior member in the group from the City of Lubbock will take the leadership role. So we will follow Mr. Atkinson's commands in case of any kind of emergency.
I need a donut.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Yes, I think everybody understands. Thank you, Mr. Atkinson. Agenda item number 4 is our public comment period. If we have anyone this morning that is wanting to speak. Hearing none. Secondly, we would like to acknowledge our guest. Good morning, all. Thank you all for being here. Agenda item number 5 is approval of the March 17, 2020 meeting minutes of the Transportation Policy Committee. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes? Do I have a motion to approve the minutes? I move to approve the minutes. Thank you, Judge Parrish. Thank you, Mayor Pope, for a second. All those in favor of approval of the minutes say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Minutes approved unanimously. Next is agenda item number 6, which is to discuss and take appropriate action regarding Resolution 2020-10, adopting the 2020 Texas Department of Transportation Safety Performance Targets, PM-1, pursuant to 23 C.F.R. 490.207. Mr. Jones, welcome.
Thank you. I have the red light. You'll recall that when MAP 21 was approved, we talked about performance measures and targets and all the associated rules and reporting requirements for state DOTs and MPOs. The figure on page 16 in your agenda backup shows you all the performance management categories introduced by MAP 21. Note too that they have all been brought forward by the FAST Act. The performance measures we are talking about this morning is the safety performance measure, and the targets, the 5 targets, are listed in that column under the heading. As noted in my comments in your backup, we are supposed to approve safety targets annually, and pursuant to the law, you have opted to adopt targets that the commission has approved previous to this meeting, and you have chosen to report in tandem with TxDOT on whether or not TxDOT has achieved significantly their goal. That being said, the 2020 targets are all posted in the resolution that's on page 19 in your agenda backup. There is another series of exhibits on page 25 through 28 that bring you forward from 2014 to 2018 because all the analysis is done on a rotating 5-year basis. And it shows you where the 2019 targets would fall on that chart to demonstrate how well they achieved their goals. The targets on page 29 through 30 tell the same story, but they are a little easier to understand. And the takeaway is, if you look at the bars on the far right side of each one of those analyses, we'll get to that one later. Notice, take a quick scan and notice, if you will, that only 3 of the 28 analyses are reporting above the previous year. Now, the bars you need to be looking at is the one on the very far right side, the one that has the barber pole looking effect. And you'll notice that of those 28 different analyses, only 2 or 3 are actually above the rest of the bars. So those are the 3 that they didn't achieve their goal. All the rest of them are below, which means they achieved their goal. FHWA and USDOT guidance says that if a state meets 1 or more of their targets, then it is considered to have achieved significant compliance with the PM rules. So we've demonstrated to you that TxDOT met their targets, met their goal, and I'm asking you to adopt the new 2020 targets that the commission has already previously adopted. I might add, if I could say one more thing, Mr. Chairman. All that being said, I just want you to know that in 2019, TxDOT programmed 917 safety projects that totaled $559.3 million and let to contract 984 projects totaling $337 million in the program areas that included lane departures, which included barriers, curves, rumble strips, and widening. They also addressed older users. I'm in that group. Wrong way driving indicators, intersections, and distracted driving. And lastly, for your consideration, Be advised that on May the 30th, 2019, the commission adopted a formal goal to achieve 0 deaths on our roadways by 2050, with a midway goal to cut fatalities in half by 2035. And again, with that, I would ask your support of that resolution.
Judge Parrish.
Mr. Jones, I'm glad you brought that part up about the commission adopting the 0 deaths there in 2019. Do we have any numbers from 2019 and how they match up yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
It'll be in the next series of reports. I have documents with me, the highway safety report, where they do all their analyses, but it's only up through 18. So the 19 will be in the next bunch of reports.
As I know, and it's always important to note, anytime we talk about projects, safety is always that number one aspect of what we do. I mean, we talk about the economy and the economics, and we talk about, all the mobility things, but safety is always our number one conversation when we're talking about roads projects. So I'm really kind of looking forward to see how the 2019
How the
numbers.
2019 turns out.
Yeah, if we're seeing that downward trend as we go toward a 0 goal by 2050.
It's
pretty aggressive.
The 0 death goal will be a major step, but they're working hard to get there.
Thank you, Judge. Do we have a motion, excuse me, do we have a motion to approve agenda item number 6? So moved. Thank you, Commissioner McKay. Do I have a second? I'll second. Second, Judge Parrish, thank you. All those in favor of approval, excuse me, of agenda item number 6, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. Motion approved unanimously. Excuse me. Agenda item number 7 is to discuss and take appropriate action regarding the proposed statement of revenue and expenses to support the development of the fiscal year 2021 Unified Planning Work Program, the UPWP. Mr. David Jones.
As I wrote in your agenda backup, our preliminary budget is due to TxDOT by June 1st. And then the final budget is due to FHWA by August the 1st. The statement of revenue and expenses, when approved, as you're well aware, becomes the programming benchmark that we use to build our next UPWP, or our budget, which will be the FY21 UPWP. That being said, you have 2 sets of numbers in your backup. You have a standard, what I'm going to call a standard budget, which is on page 33, and one with an additional FTE on page 34. The highlights of the standard budget on page 33 include payroll and benefits subtotal shows a $6,600 increase based on formulas for each of those subcategories using a 3% raise for employees, merit raise. It includes in the other charges category a $3,100 increase made up of, in subcategory 8302, there's a 3% raise for employees plus our $20,000 legal fees. And then in 8309, data processing charges have increased by 5.8%. Then in 8406, contributions other, that's the category that, if you approve the statement of revenue and expenses, that we take back to the advisory committee, and they program that money, and then we bring that back to you for your approval in the UPWP. For a number of years now, that programming includes $53,700 to City Bus, $53,700 to the City of Lubbock GIS Department, and previously $7,000 to Traffic Engineering. They have opted out of the program, and so now we're gonna put that $7,000 in the UPWP at Task 5 and use that as our money into the Wolfforth, City of Wolfforth land use study. It's currently underway. So as we implement the UPWP, we'll be able to charge our time against that $7,000. It also includes in subcategory 8107, office rent increased 2% by contract, for a total increase in the subcategory of $3,100, which drives at the bottom, $9,815 increase in total expenses over last year's, which is a 2% increase. Now remember, this is the standard, what I'm calling a standard budget. Whereas on the other hand, in the next statement of revenue and expenses that you have, it includes the additional FTE. Remember, a couple of months ago, you approved us to look at that and to bring you back a set of numbers for you to review and make a decision on. That statement includes the additional FTE, and it shows a $138,554 increase in payroll and benefits over last year, which includes that additional person and the 3% raise for the current staff. The other charges subcategory shows the same 3% for the current staff in subcategory 8302. It also includes an additional computer drop and computer equipment at 8309, additional rent for office space at 8701, which includes in that one number an additional phone drop, an additional telephone set for a $10,281 increase in that subcategory, which drives a $148,836 increase over our last year's expenses, or a 31% increase for the additional FTE. So then the next question is, how do we intend to pay for it? I would ask you to look at the March financial report on page 69 in your agenda backup. And you'll see there that since our last meeting, we have gotten our third and probably last work authorization from TxDOT. So our revenues now are $1,085,000. Now that number includes the number we were waiting on for the last 2 months, our 2019 carryover. Gives us that total revenue. If we expend our total budget this year, that'll give us a carryover or remaining balance revenue over expense of $605,000. But Tammy does such a good job with her budget, I anticipate we'll have considerably more than that left over. So I'm guessing we'll have closer to $800,000 to carry over to 2021. And that's how we would pay for the additional FTE. That being said, I would direct your attention to TxDOT's budget recommendation, which I have in your backup on page 31 and 32. In summary, TxDOT's advice to all MPOs is to continue with moderation, be conservative, reduce spending where you can, and seek other sources of revenue. So with that directive in mind, as much as I would like to recommend the budget with the additional person, I will not. And I will recommend to you the standard budget with which is a 2% increase over current expenses. And that's my presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If it's appropriate, I had a quick question for
Yes,
Mr. Jones.
Mr. Atkinson, please.
Thank you. Mr. Jones, the carryover dollars that you guys have built because you've managed these budgets so well, are those subject to recapture or clawback? They're
No.
not. So those are banked
Those are banked.
dollars. Okay, thank you. Mr. Chair, I think Mr. Jones's recommendations are sound. I think they're appropriate. Certainly, there's comments from USDOT and Federal Highway that really echo how the city of Lubbock has put into play different things to manage the potential budget shortfalls. Now, the budget shortfall here is different. It's strictly based on a federal allocation. But they're good and they're sound, so I'm going to sound a bit illogical for a moment. I think just due to where we stand with our MPO and our staffing, I think prior discussions by this body, I would suggest we do debate and consider the additional FTE with the $800,000 to $890,000 carryover. Would suggest you have a bank that carries that position past the point at which we hope the federal government will stabilize, and they'll either do their continuing resolution or they'll do a real allocation. But I do suggest that this board debate that matter.
Thank you. Mayor Pope?
Yes, sir.
Is your mic on? Thank you.
There you go. Thank you. Mr. Jones, I appreciate your work and certainly understand your recommendation, taking the advice of moderation. I know we're going to, in a moment, the very next item, I'd like to see moderation explained to me on this, but we'll get to that in a moment.
We'll let Kylan do that.
You knew that was coming, Mr. Jones. I'm with Mr. Atkinson. We've been good stewards of the money that we have been allotted. We do need to begin planning for a transition. I think it's very important that we do that, and I think it's time to start that now. And so I'm supportive of the budget on page 34.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other discussion?
Yes.
No, I'm sorry. Commissioner, please.
Keeping in mind these are not local tax dollars, they are tax dollars. But it's somewhat irrelevant to the local situation of the city or county. That these dollars are earmarked and are there in the bank and solid. Thanks to the hard work that y'all done and working to always keep a tight budget. But it is planning for the future. There will be a tomorrow, and we'll need MPO next month, next year, for many, many years. And so planning and working to develop long-term strategies is critical. And so I would agree with the manager, mayor, positive step forward.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any other comments concerning this budget? So So if we were to, and I totally agree, that these dollars, and thank you for the work you've done, but we do have to plan for the future. That's our job. And I believe that it's appropriate that we go with the budget on page 34. We need a motion and a second to adopt this budget.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on item 7 that we approve the budget presented on page 34.
I would second.
We have a motion and a second. Motion by Mayor Pope, second by Commissioner McKay. All those in favor of approving the budget on page 34, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion approved. Thank you very much. Agenda item number 8 is our reports. Mr. Jones, will you come back to the podium, please?
Yes, sir. Our first report is a status report of the proposed 2021 Unified Transportation Program. And I have asked Kylan Francis, the Director of Planning at our district, to make a short presentation about the proposed 2021 UTP.
Good morning.
Good morning, welcome.
Thank you. So I actually had another call with our UTP group at the exact same time, so I actually got a little bit more information, so that's good. Essentially, as you can see in that spreadsheet that you've been given, Lubbock still has maintained anything that was previously programmed, we still have. So that's pretty much what they're telling everybody. The current allocations stay the same. The only thing that is affected is the 2021 UTP balance. So previously, our 2021 UTP, so our estimate that happened in the fall, we had $4.7 billion of Category 12 commission funding available for programming. But after the $3.4 billion was taken to be used for I-35, we are now at $1.3 billion for Cat 12. So there are a couple of other promises that the commission has already allocated money for in that $1.3 billion. There's $235 million for the Permian Promise. So that is something that does help us. We do get a lot of money for the Permian Basin areas. We have multiple counties, so Lubbock South is considered to be part of the Permian Basin. So any projects, even Loop 88, they're considering part of the Permian Promise. So we are getting funding for that, so that's good. And then they previously also, they're also putting $307 million towards the I-35 project for 2021 too. And that's to fill that funding gap. So that leaves $757 million of Category 12 funding for this 2021 UTP that the commission can program that they're working on right now. So in April, the commission was given our projects that we've put forward for the project call, and they scored them. And in June, they should make their final decision on which ones they're gonna go forward with, and then they'll do your public involvement for all of the 2021 UTP. So are there any particular questions?
Mayor Pope.
Ms. Francis, do I understand that as, let me make sure I have the numbers right, that we started with $4.7 billion in commission discretionary Cat 12 ended up with 757 million.
Yes, for this year, yes.
Is that correct? And that 200, roughly 230 million of that is for Permian Promise, is that
Yes.
right? The rest of it would be for I-35
Yes,
in two different tranches, but regardless for I-35.
correct, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I just would like to make sure that the record reflects that I hope and expect that the same type of flexibility that the commission has shown on this move will be readily available when we get ready to fund a very much needed second interstate, north-south interstate in our state. I can be a team player all day long as the team exists west of I-35.
Thank you, Mayor Pope. I think there's some thumbs up in from the audience on that. Any other questions for Ms. Francis or comments? Yes, Mayor.
I just want to thank David for Mr. Jones for, you guys did a nice job with your comment at the UTP, and I'm thankful for that. I think you said it the right way. It was something that we can be proud of, and I think, frankly, I'm not sure all your peers were quite so gracious, and I'm thankful for your willingness, Mr. Chair. I know you were involved in that also. I'm thankful for both of you and your efforts.
I did not speak, Mayor. Mr. Jones did all the speaking, and that's the reason it was. You
said it, not me.
It was done well, Mr. Jones. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it is what it is, but we do expect the flexibility. Thank you, Ms. Francis.
Thank you.
All right, come back to the podium, Mr. Jones. You're not done, are you?
Not done, but it won't take but a minute. The next report in your agenda backup concerns Uber and Lime. Micromobility is a new modal player in the transportation industry that is recognized by USDOT. And in that regard, I thought this article was interesting. If you don't know, Lime has acquired Uber's bikes and scooters division, which is called Jump, and that now, at least on paper, is the largest micro-mobility company in the world. It's a chess game that the merger portrays that's interesting, but the article points out it's still a privately held company, and at the end of the day, they don't have the same responsibility or obligations to their stakeholders as public transit companies do. So the takeaway here is support your local bus company, or you could be stranded again. The next report is a report from TxDOT. They are seeking candidates for the State Bicycle Advisory Committee. There's an email from Karen Peoples, who is our local safety officer at the district. She has forwarded an application for membership to the state's Bicycle Advisory Committee, and there are instructions in that email. And if you yourself are interested, or you know anybody who might be interested, please forward that application and instructions on, and the state would appreciate it. The next report is a timeline on page 45, a timeline for the next joint federal FHWA FTA certification examination. As noted, it is scheduled for July the 21st through the 23rd, and the subsequent outbrief will be that following Friday the 24th. The highlights include the examiners. I don't know how many there will be, but they have already indicated that they will attend your policy committee meeting on the 21st. And they want the elected officials interview that same morning after the meeting. And we've already talked about Chairman Griffith, Councilwoman Patterson-Harris, and Judge Parrish for 3 of our elected interviewees. Then they want the required public listening session scheduled for the afternoon of the 22nd from 4 to 6 at the Downtown Transfer Center, which was where we've done it before.
Yeah.
So we'll get that set up. Then they'll do their debrief on Friday, and they haven't said anything about when we might expect a final report. And if it's like the last one, it'll be months and months and months, but we'll get one. Mike Leary will more than likely lead the Federal Highways team. He is the executive director of the Texas division at FHWA. Then we'll have a new FTA rep, Donald Koski. Is that right, Chris? He has taken Melissa Foreman's place. And then, or at least the last session, we had a operations specialist from FHWA and a civil rights lawyer from the Justice Department join the team. But that's the schedule, and that's what they want to do, so that's what unless there's some objection, that's what we'll work on from today. The next report on page 47 through 52, I just put a couple of AMPO policy alerts in the backup just to keep you in the loop on what our national organization is doing to respond to the pandemic. Both letters to congressional leadership are in association with the National Association of Regional Councils and the National Association of Development Organizations. First letter requests that significant additional funding for local governments be included in the next response package. And the second letter requests that at least $20 billion in flexible transportation funds through the Surface Transportation Block Grant, which is where you get your money for the things that you do, be in the next bill. And further, that these funds should be suballocated in the same manner as the 2020 apportionment was distributed, with eligibility expanded to include uses such as non-federal match, which you can't do now, attributable to MPO and state planning activities. And lastly, the bill should address statutorily required deadlines and processes that we're having to deal with now. And the rest of that information is just things that bedside reading. The next report is on census activities, page 53. I put 2 articles in there. First is a report that nationwide 58.1% of all households have now responded to the call for information. And to that end, the city of Lubbock has reported 55.7% as of last Thursday. So we're doing good. But we need to encourage continuation, make sure everybody turns in their information. Then as you look through the report, you'll notice several links to other information that's fun. If you haven't gotten on the Census Bureau's website, it's kind of fun to tinker around and look at all the stuff that they have available and the information you can pull off. So I included that in there just so you have those links. Likewise, the second report Bureau news tip sheet is full of little nuggets, little gems that you might want to go through and look at. And lastly, the new round of 2019 population estimates, which are due out in June, I think June 1st, maybe, have been embargoed through May the 21st, and will be available in June, on June 1st. And this will be the last estimate that they make pending the 2020 census. Just FYI. And then, I think the next report is the last report, and it is the monthly financial statement, if I can find it. Oh, no, elections. Be advised, as a reminder, that elections, your elections are in October of this year, a few months up the road. Recall that we have an unwritten rule that we will rotate stakeholders in the chair and vice chair positions if the board wishes to continue that process. That being said, it would be the county's turn at the helm this round. And those elections are for a 2-year cycle. Remember, Maurice was the chair prior to Jeff, and Mayor Addington was prior to Maurice. And so it'll be the county's, it would be, if you want to continue, the county's term next up. So I'll leave the board to their devices to figure that out. The last report's on page 69. That's our monthly financial report. We talked a little bit about it a while ago. Our revenue is like $1.008 million. I don't have it in front of me. It's $1,087,000 something. And our expenses, this is the 50 percentile May, and our expenses are at 39% today. So we're doing good on that. And short of any questions, that'd be my report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Jones on the reports? Any comments? There's one thing we left off.
Yes, sir.
It's National Bike Month.
Oh, I'm sorry, it is.
Okay? And on the front of your agenda packet, talks about this. On the back side of it, it explains about National Bike Month. And I would like to alert this panel that your chairman did purchase a bicycle and has been riding a bicycle. And no, I don't wear Lycra, and it's not a mountain bike.
Can we get that picture?
That's the reason it's on my phone, Mayor. But it is National Bike Month. Please be safe on your bicycles. Because I'm out there now. Anything else today? Our inaugural meeting at Citizens Tower. We appreciate Mr. Jones and your staff, what y'all are doing for us. Again, Mayor Wright, welcome. We should say we did appreciate Mayor Addington's service for many years on this panel. And I think we should give him a due that we appreciate what he did, and best wishes to him. But welcome. And with nothing else, we are adjourned.
Thank each of you for your time this morning. We know you're busy. We appreciate you being here.